Good morning, music lovers, and welcome to episode 7 of Talkin' Tunes with Dr. Tony. Today we have a very special edition. It's going to be a relatively lengthy video, so you may want to watch this in a couple different segments. Unless you're very enthused and you want to hang with it, it's probably around maybe about 80 minutes long. But it involves a conversation with one of my dearest and oldest friends in the world. And we're going to be taking a look at one of our very, very favorite artists who I've talked to you about before in the past. And the best way to tell you who it is to show you this poster. So here it is, if you can see it. It's Frank Zappa, and this is from a concert at Cal State Fullerton in 1972, and Alice Cooper, who was discovered by Frank Zappa, was the opening act. So Frank Zappa recorded from 1966 to 1993, and he released 63 albums during his lifetime, which is very, very prolific. I don't know of anybody else that could claim that record. And then after his death, there's been 62 albums released by his estate. So the grand total as of today of Frank Zappa recordings are 125. So what we did is we just talked about our top 5. So as you can imagine, it was very difficult to narrow down 125 recordings to just 5, but I think we did a pretty good job with it. So without any further delay, I'm going to wrap this up, and the next thing you should see is the conversation that I had with my friend Stan. Hope you all are doing well. Right. So this is my friend Stan Schaffner. I've been friends with him for over 40 years. It may be like 42 years. What do you think, Stan?
Well, hi, Tony. So here we are. Yeah, you're right. I think it was 1981 or 1982 we met, and I think it was at a work party, and we got to talking about music. And as I recall, you were into some of the things I was into, like Larry Coryell, Weather Report, and Frank Zappa. Even back then, in the early 80s, those were not household words necessarily. They certainly weren't top 20 artists. And people like me, when I used to meet somebody that liked those sort of esoteric, artists, I would latch on. And, here we are, as you said, 40 some years later, still somewhat latched. We're certainly still friends. So good to be here. Good to have
And,
opportunity.
and it's great we're able to use this technology because Stan lives in Northern California and I'm in North Georgia, as many of you probably know. And to commemorate Stan, I have a glass of red blend from Mendocino, and it's 14% alcohol. So it's fairly strong, but I couldn't get Zinfandel. This was the closest thing I could get.
I think it works. I wanted to show one thing. I just wanted to do one time for the Frank
Ah,
Zappa shirt. I went to the Doheny Blues Festival with this on about 5 years ago, and you'd be amazed. So many people said, "Hey, look, Frank Zappa! All right, all right." So there are fans out there. We're not the only ones.
well, I don't have any Zappa shirts anymore, but when I was married, I had a Frank Zappa button on my lapel. And then the next day we took the boat to Catalina and I had a Frank Zappa t-shirt made for me there. It was just a red shirt that said Frank Zappa in black letters. And then I got a leather t-shirt for free when that album was trying to be released. But all 3 of those things are long gone. I don't have any. I just have this black shirt here,
All right.
pretty
Well,
nondescript.
I'll imagine that it says Zappa.
There
I
you
have
go.
this. I have this shirt, and I also have a shirt I bought like in 1977, and it says "titties and beer" on it. Unfortunately, I was a different configuration back then, so I can't wear it anymore, which is fine. But I'm going to keep that T-shirt.
Well, that's a very nice shirt. So what we're doing today is we're going to do a Frank Zappa top five countdown, and we probably will migrate to some other topics. But what I thought would be kind of fun to do, Stan, in the beginning is maybe we could talk about the first Frank Zappa album we ever heard, and also the first Frank Zappa concert that we went to. What do you think of starting off with those two topics?
That's fine. That's fine. Let's do that.
So you want to go first with the first album you remember hearing?
Yes, because actually that was part of the spiel I was thinking about was, Zappa was somebody I strongly disliked for several years when I was in
Really?
my late teens and early 20s, I guess. I had a friend who used to play him all the time, and every time Zappa would come on, I'd just leave the room. And um, anyway, the first album that I listened to was because Mike said, "Damn it, I'm tired of you not listening to this. I want you to experience Zappa." So he set me down in front of Overnight Sensation, which has all the words written out there. And he made me read the words to a little song called Dynamo Hum. Dynamo Hum is a song that has a menage a trois. It has a $40 bill, and it's got a lot of interesting things. But he forced me to listen to that, and so it was the first Zappa album or song I really listened to, and I loved it. And so it's my gateway drug for Zappa. And from that point on, that was about 1973. I think it came out in 73,
You did.
and I've been listening for 50 years thereafter.
Well, for me, there used to be a radio show on Sunday night from KPPC in Pasadena, which was a commercial-free station, and it was on from 8 to 12, and the host was a guy named Elliot Mintz, Mintz. He
Yeah.
ended up becoming a friend of John Lennon for many years, but it was a free-form show. Their bumper music was "Let's Spend the Night Together," and he would
Okay.
he would do play all kinds of strange things. But I heard this song called "What Kind of Girl Do You Think We Are" from the Mothers live at the Fillmore East. So this was 1971.
Yeah.
I thought
That's when
that
it
song,
came out.
yeah, that song was amazing. So I was 16 or 17. Yeah, I was a senior in high school, and I thought that song was hilarious. So that was really the first album that I got into. So that was my introduction.
You liked it.
I loved it. Yeah, I mean
So
it's hilarious.
did it prompt you to go out and buy the album?
I don't think so. I didn't have a lot of money back then, but
They only cost $3.
I think I probably got it on 8 track from a bootleg 8 track from the swap meet. And I used to play it in my car, and my friends would not let me listen to it because they hated it. How about your first concert, Zappa concert? Do you remember that?
Well, we've talked about this. I think my first Frank Zappa concert is one that you were at. It was a New Year's Eve concert at the Los
Okay.
Angeles Forum. And I remember my friend and I went out to dinner, and sometime after dinner and before the concert, we had a few drinks. And for whatever reason, I was tired that day, and I slept through 99% of that
Uh,
concert. They woke me up when it was over, basically. So I remember when the clock struck 12, there was a bunch of little pixies dancing on the stage. And that was, because I was under the weather and tired and waking up, it seemed like a fairy tale. That was my first concert. So it wasn't really a concert.
that doesn't count because you slept through most of it. What about the next one after that? You remember that one?
I think the next one now I looked at my history, and I think I saw Zappa maybe 5 times, and one of them was at the Santa Monica Civic. And that also wasn't very good for me because, Zappa, you can kind of categorize his music. He does some comedy, he does some jazz stuff, he does some rock stuff, some undefinable stuff. This particular concert at the Santa Monica Civic, I think it was in the you can't define it category. It was very unaccessible, and we listened to the whole show. It was all music that nobody had ever heard before.
Mm.
It's kind of experimental sounding. There was no vocals. It was very well rehearsed. I mean, it was good from that standpoint, but we didn't really care for it. Anyway, we went through like 90 minutes of that, and in the last 5 minutes of the concert, Frank Zappa did a quick medley of some of his hits like Camarillo Brillo, and then he wrapped up the show. So that probably was the first Frank Zappa show I was conscious for.
There
So
you go.
that counts.
Well, my first one was, and I went onto the internet today to collaborate this or corroborate it, and it
Corroborate, yeah.
was at the Hollywood Palladium, March of 1973. And interestingly, a band called Reuben and the Jets opened for them. So there was I'll use a Zappa word, ersatz band called Reuben and the Jets for a while. I do not remember them playing at all, but I had my steel-toed work boots from the steel mill, and on one I painted F in yellow paint, the other one I painted Z, and I had
Uh-huh.
a yellow jumpsuit, and I had a blue paisley cape that I wore to the concert. And it
Was
was,
it a Roger Daltrey cape?
no, it was not. It was full length, and it was general admission. And I ended up getting all the way up to the stage, and I was able to touch the stage. And this is the band. This was the Overnight Sensation band. So Ralph Humphrey on drums, Jean-Luc Ponty was there, Ian Underwood, the Fowler brothers, George Duke, and it was fantastic. And I may have told you this, but there was one song they played, and I don't remember what it was, but one by one they switched instruments during the song. And at the end of the song, they were all playing different instruments than what they started off with, but the song never changed. They were able to maintain the continuity.
Yeah.
And I was completely blown away. And what I found today on the internet is Leonard Feather. You remember Leonard Feather?
No, I don't.
He was a jazz critic,
Okay.
and this was for the LA Times. He reviewed the
That
concert,
actually was going to be my guess.
and he did not review it very favorably. He basically said that the musicians were suppressed in really being able to play what they were capable of playing. And with Zappa, he was such a tyrant that you pretty much had to play exactly what he had scripted for you. Otherwise, you were in trouble. So that was my first show, and it was very very good, and I was a fan for a long time after that. So that's it. So you want to get into our honorable mentions?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
So I have three, and I think you have three as well.
I
And
do.
I don't think we need to put them in order. Maybe we can just talk about each one briefly. We'll alternate, and then we'll get into our top five. How does that sound?
That's totally fine.
So one of my honorable mentions is Apostrophe. And interestingly, this and Overnight Sensation are his only two gold albums. And
Yeah.
that's not surprising because I think they are probably the most mainstream. This has Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, and Overnight Sensation has Montana. And many people know those songs. They may not know them by name, but if you play them, oh yeah, I know that. But Apostrophe, I got to see the band play that at UC Santa Barbara. That's when Terry Bozzio was first with Zappa, and they played Apostrophe. Jack Bruce wasn't there, of course, but I think it's a really good album. I think it's probably not his most adventurous musically, but there's a lot of great songs. Uncle Remus, Stinkfoot, St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast, Cosmic Debris. I mean, it's a great album. And but I think with repeated listenings, I think you probably would grow tired of it and want to put it away and not pull it out again for a while. So what do you think?
Well, I have like 40 or 50 Zappa albums. I don't know, it's this many. Okay.
Haha.
And I was flipping through it the other night and I said, I got to pick five of these. And how do you pick five? And you know, uh Apostrophe popped up. I mean, when I was talking about Overnight Sensation earlier, is the gateway album for me. When I got curious about Zappa, I thought, okay, well, the next thing came out the next year, like 1974-ish, something
I
like
think they
that.
were recorded in the same studio at the same time. That's why there's a lot of similarity between the
Right.
sound of those two.
You got that Ruth Underwood thing going
Yeah.
with the vibes, man. That's so good. I just love that. So I get you.
Is that one of your honorable mentions as well?
Um, no, it's not.
Oh,
If we
oh,
want to
okay.
strictly talk about honorable mentions, give me 10 seconds because I have these in an interesting order because they're all gateway. My other honorable mention is this one. And
Yeah,
you talked about this. This was
right.
something you heard when you were 16. Uh, 1971, Frank Zappa did a series of concerts, as I'm sure you know, and he did a wide variety of music. He did uh, a lot of his sort of comedy-oriented stuff, and he did a lot of his older stuff too. And what I just found out, this is interesting, and I think it was last year they released 8 CD compilation of those concerts. So it's like every single note played over, 4 different nights. Between I think one was in London, one was in New York City, the Fillmore East, and you've got Los Angeles too. Um, so anyway, this was a gateway album for me. Also, it got me to want to hear some other albums. And I think you already talked about this pretty well, but I guess what I want to say about these albums, just another band from LA and Fillmore, is their Flo and Eddie albums. Now, you love Flo and Eddie or you hate Flo and Eddie. My opinion is they're pretty damn good singers. They almost get orchestral at times. And for what Zappa was trying to accomplish at this point in his career, I think it fit really well. And I adore both of these albums. So Fillmore East, definite honorable mention. It's got some comedy oriented stuff, and it's got some of his classics like Peaches and Regalia. You have to love that stuff. My other honorable mention, you want to go to yours first?
Yeah, and I
Go
want to
ahead.
mention something. I set a ground rule for my selection. Now, Zappa's got, I think, over 110 albums that have been released.
I believe that. Yeah.
And I restricted my selections to only the albums released in his lifetime that he had control over because
Good.
I have somewhat of a bias. I mean, Jimi Hendrix is a perfect example of that. I think a lot of times the estates of these people, they just want to clean up financially and they'll release everything. My opinion, for what it's worth, is that the best stuff was released in somebody's lifetime because they were in control. And if that other stuff would have been released worthy, they would have released it. But I know that there's a business element where people are constrained from releasing things. So in general, I try to stay with the original stuff, but I know that there's a lot of good live stuff that I need to partake of, and that's going to be something that I'm going to be looking at in the near future. So
Yeah.
my next honorable mention, and I switched this one today. I don't know if you're gonna hate me for this. Hot Rats.
Hot Rats. Yeah.
It
Love
was
Hot
originally in
Rats.
my top five, but with another listening today, I put it in the honorable mention category. And I so I must confess, there are a number of Zappa things that I'm not familiar with. And I would put many selections off of Lumpy Gravy, Chunga's Revenge, Weasels, Rip My Flesh, and this album maybe where Uncle Meat as well. So Uncle Meat, Weasels Rip My Flesh, Chunga's Revenge, and Lumpy Gravy. If you name a song off of those albums, chances are I don't know the song because I've really never taken the time to examine those albums. But on this one, I made a couple notes. I love Son of Mr. Green Jeans. I think that's really good. There's a strong melody there, and there's a unison of the melody. It's got a great ending, really good guitar solo, and um, Gumbo Variations. The Gumbo Variations. I thought that's pretty cool. Sugarcane Harris is on there with Zappa playing some good lead, and also Ian Underwood is all over this album on keyboards and saxophone, and that's one of my favorite members because he was like the most normal guy in the band. You
Yeah.
look at him, he was kind of like the Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead, where
There
this
you go.
guy is normal. Go ahead, you want to add something?
Does that album have Willie the Pimp?
Yeah, it is Willie the Pimp, and I get tired of that because I'm not a
It's
big
long.
Captain Beefheart fan, so it's good. Of course, Peaches and Regalia is probably one of the top five compositions ever from him, in my opinion. So that's wonderful. But anyway, I think that this album just doesn't have the staying power to be in my top five. I like it a lot, but there's other ones that I like better. So that's why it got an honorable mention.
Shall I go to my number three?
Yeah, or you could comment on Hot Rats if you want, or wait. It's
Well,
up to you.
Hot Rats. Wasn't that put out just before Grand Wazoo?
It was 69, yeah, so shortly before.
Okay.
Grand Wazoo was 72 because if my memory serves me well, that and Waka Jawaka is when Zappa was recovering from getting taken down off the stage at the Rainbow in England. So he really wasn't able to perform. He was in a wheelchair for most of the year.
Yeah, and that explains a lot. No, I mean generally, as I said earlier, I mean if I was to pick any album randomly out of my collection of Zappas, it could be my favorite. It would be the favorite for that day because they all have something that's a masterful composition. So I love it all. Anyway, my third honorable mention is
What was it,
this.
second or third?
Well, this is the third.
So
The second one was the Fillmore East.
Fillmore
That
and
got me.
Apostrophe was the first.
No, the first one was Overnight Sensation, which was my
Okay,
gateway album to get me to
gotcha.
like
Okay,
Zappa.
gotcha.
This one made me like further albums, and
Uh-huh.
this one is just truly Chic Your Booty. Yeah, that's a handsome face, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, it almost made it into my top five because it's got some irresistible songs on it. I mean, it's let's face it, they were all quite lewd. I mean, if he was to put this album out today, he would get canceled. Chic Your Booty, I mean, has songs like Broken Hearts Are for Assholes and I Have Been in You. uh, Bobby Brown Goes Down. I
Yeah.
mean, these songs back in 1979 when the album came out were really good, and you know we liked that humor back then, and we still like it now, but we have to kind of secretly like it because you know it's not politically correct anymore.
I want to just add, just segue. So you know what I Have Been in You is a takeoff of.
I do not.
It's a takeoff of I'm in You by Peter Frampton, which
Oh,
was the follow-up to Frampton Comes Alive.
yeah,
It was really sad because he was out touring, making all this money, and they forced him to go in the studio, Peter Frampton, to make a follow-up album, and he had no songs, and the thing was garbage. So anyway, that's the story about that. But go ahead.
yeah. The other thing about the Shake Your Booty era is went to see the concert. This was also at Santa Monica Civic in support of that album, and that was my favorite Frank Zappa concert because he had the velvet curtains, and they came back, and he's standing there in a bathrobe with his Gibson SG guitar, and behind him was a clothesline strung from one end of the stage to the other, and hanging from it were various undergarments, brasiers and panties and such. And he told us that on that tour they were collecting women's undergarments because they wanted to make a quilt. And then he invited all the female audience members to contribute to the quilt, and it was pretty entertaining to watch a parade of women come up to the stage and take their stuff off and throw it up. And Frank Zappa accepted each piece graciously and smelled them and did his Frank Zappa thing, as you probably could imagine. But anyway, that was super entertaining. That I'm going to say this quietly, but I was with my ex-wife. I couldn't find anybody to go to the show with me, and I said, please go to the show. And she went with me, and she actually enjoyed it. She had previously not liked Zappa too much, but she liked it. And after about an hour and a half, she got tired. So I said, okay, you've been a good sport. Let's leave. We were almost out of the arena, and Frank Zappa says, hey, LA, where are you going? I'm going to play Bobby Brown. And Bobby Brown was if you want to call it a hit. I mean, it wasn't worthy of the radio, but it was the most popular song, in my opinion, on Shake Your Booty. And it brought the house down. It's just a wonderful concert. So anyway,
Now,
Shake Your Booty is my number 3 honorable mention.
so is that a double album?
It is.
Yeah. So what are some of the other songs on there? You mentioned just three.
Well, yeah, I mentioned I Have Been in You and Broken Hearts Are for Assholes. My favorite song is well, it has 2 titles, but it's a continuum. There's a whole side that has a song called Wild Love, and then it segues into Yo Mama.
Okay.
And these are guitar tour de forces, just fantastic, just beautiful music. And what this came out in 79, I used to it was compulsory listening. If you were going to go to Stan's house back then, you had to listen to Yo Mama and Wild Love. So those are quite good. He was well into his virtuoso period by then. I think by the time he was doing Apostrophe, as you mentioned earlier, his guitar work was really good, and it just got better and better as the years went by.
Yeah, that album, I don't have that album in my collection. And again, I'm not familiar with probably half of the songs by name. If I heard them, I'd say, oh yeah. All right. So my number 3 is I'm going to violate my rule about things being released in his lifetime, but there is a big asterisk attached to this selection. And this is my number 3 honorable mention. Leather.
Yeah,
Leather.
Funky's
So
Lips.
I need to tell the Leather story. So in December of 1977, K-Rock, they were going to broadcast an interview with Frank Zappa. So I tuned in, And he came on and proceeded to say that Warner Brothers would not release his latest recording, which I think was from September of that year. There were four, it was a 4 record set. So he said, I'm going to play the entire thing for you right now in its entirety and make some commentary between the songs. So if you have a bunch of blank cassettes, load up your machine. So that's exactly what I did. So for many years, that was the only version of Leather that I had on those cassettes. And I put this as an asterisk because it really didn't come out until I think 1996. And it came out into a 3 CD set, which is the one I have. And I also think they released it on vinyl. But I think that this is probably the best Frank Zappa sampler because it covers every type of music that he ever did. And this morning I did listen to the majority of it. So we have Egyptian Strut. It starts
Yep.
off. Now this is the CD, and they're very cool. There's a trombone solo there, probably Tom Fowler or Bruce Fowler. I don't know
Yep.
which one. And then there's Naval Aviation and Art, which is kind of like a soundtrack to a movie that you would hear. A Little Green Rosetta, which is Zappa just kind of repeating that phrase over and over again. And then he plays guitar on the rest of the second half. Duck, Duck, Goose. You know that one?
I do not know that one.
It's got a very heavy guitar beginning, and then it switches to doo-wop vocals and then orchestral music. So it's pretty crazy. Down into Do. That reminded me a little bit of the little house I used to live in.
Yeah.
Similar sort of thing. And then we have For the Young Sophisticate, guitar and vocal. Now, the next three, we have Trying to Grow a Chin, which is one of my favorites. Broken Hearts Are for Assholes, so it originated on this album. And then The Legend of the Illinois Enema Bandit with Don Pardo doing the announcing. And then it goes to Let Me Take You to the Beach.
Yeah.
Revised music for guitar and low budget orchestra, and then Redunzel. And, you know, a lot of these songs appeared on Studio Tan, Sleep Dirt, and Zappa in New York, and orchestral favorites. So then we have Honey, Don't You Want a Man Like Me? Of course, Big Leg Emma, Punky's Whips, which we love. And then some other ones are The Ocean is the Ultimate Solution, which I think is an amazing song. And then we have The Adventures of Gregory Peccary, which I'm okay. It's pretty long, and I think he's done better in that genre. But again, some people have put this as their number one Zappa of all time. And I can understand that because it's got everything. And so anyway, that's my number 3 honorable mention with an asterisk.
Good one. I love those songs.
Yeah. It's got the Duke of Orchestral Prunes.
Yep.
Which is really cool. Anyway, so why don't we get into our number 5 now? Number 5, Zappa, what is your number 5?
Well, my number 5, give me a moment. Number 5. I think I mentioned this before. After Overnight Sensation, I got curious, Zappa Curious, no glare. And I went to Apostrophe. You've already talked about this. I mean, again, what I can add is, you know, with his Gibson SG guitar, he was a guitar hero by this time. He was on the level of Beck and Clapton and Page. I mean, to me, he was that good. And, you know, there was songs like Apostrophe, the title track, Eccentrical Force. I mean, these are heavy metal rocking songs, man. They just sound great. And But my favorite, and you mentioned this song earlier, was Stinkfoot. I just adore Stinkfoot. I mean, he brings us this, I think it's a real disease. Frank Zappa in this song talks about bromidrosis. What the hell is that? But it's Stinkfoot. I looked it up at some point, and I think it's legit. But back in 74, whenever this came out, it sounded like a Frank Zappa disease. So just a lovely album. I mean, you have the Ruth Underwood influence, and it was probably one of the best Frank Zappa bands ever. Just everybody was just clicking back then. So that's my number 5.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm looking for something that I can't find, like my glasses or my phone, I'll go to Becky and I'll say, I've got the crystal ball, which
Yeah,
comes off of Cosmic Debris, correct?
yeah, yeah.
The guitar solo on Cosmic Debris, Zappa was really into his wah-wah pedal a lot during that era, and it just sounds fantastic. I mean, he's got the best tone on his guitar. Really good.
He does. That Gibson SG model. That's what Angus Young of AC/DC plays. Zappa plays a little bit differently, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's different styles. You can get a lot out of that guitar. I've always wanted one. I play some guitar, and it's got a beautiful, unique sound. So
I don't have any AC/DC in my collection. Sorry to say.
I have Back in Black.
Yeah. I've been listening to the record collection I got from my brother, and I was listening to a bunch of Van Halen. I can't stand Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen is a nice guitar player, but David Lee Roth for me just that's a deal breaker. You talk about a narcissist. Anyway, little tangent there.
Van Halen. I had a chance to see them open up for Carlos Santana a long time ago in the late 70s, and
Yeah.
soon as they walked out on stage, they had all their spandex on and their long frizzy hair, and I said, I don't want any of this. So I went out to the bar and got a beer or something until they were done, and we came back to our seats just as they were finishing their encore, and Eddie Van Halen was doing his thing, and I thought, oh my God, what did I just miss? It was like the most phenomenal guitar playing I had ever heard. And I only got like a 2-minute segment of it. So
Yeah.
I probably tolerate Van Halen a little bit more than you, but
Yeah.
I don't
So
actively listen to them.
my number 5 is something that moved up from the honorable mention, and this is it, the Grand Wazoo.
All right. Good
So
one.
for me, being an ex-trombone and French horn player, I really appreciate this big band sound that he has. And there's some really cool trombone parts and piano parts here.
Yep,
It's interesting. Do you have the vinyl version of this?
I do. You might see it in a while.
Yeah, because they resequenced the songs on the CD.
They did.
Did you know that?
They
And,
did.
and I didn't know that until recently, but for sure, side 2 on the CD, which is Cletus Auritus Auritus, then Eat
Yep.
That Question and Blessed Relief. That to me is the best. But I guess, well, so tell me what the sequence was on the record.
Side 2 is the same. Side
What
1
about the
was
whole thing?
first song is Calvin,
Okay,
followed by the title track, Grand Wazoo.
gotcha. Yep.
Then we have
So
Cletus and Eat That Question and Blessed Relief.
yeah,
The CD is different.
yeah, on the CD, it's the Grand Wazoo is first, then for
Okay.
Calvin is second.
Okay.
But this CD for me has legs. I can listen to this for probably a long, long time and not grow tired of it. And as a matter of fact, I just ordered Waka Jawaka yesterday because I
Yeah.
don't have that in my collection. And I know that they're kind of bookends. As a matter of fact, they just had a reissue of both together with additional recordings. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
But
No.
again, that's an example. They're going back into the vaults and they're taking some stuff and like, is it really that much better than having the two original recordings? I don't know, and I probably will never know because this one and Waka Jawaka will sustain me for the rest of my life for sure.
I agree with your earlier point. You know, if the artist thought it was good enough to release while he or she was alive, I mean, that's all I need to know. And everything that came thereafter, after the person passed, you know, it's somebody trying to make an extra buck. I mean, I'm convinced Jimi Hendrix is a good example that the music in that category is not as good as, you know, when Jimmy was alive. That's just the way it is for me, my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
So what do you have as your number 5?
number 5. Well, number 5 was Apostrophe. I'm going to go to my number 4.
Number 4, sorry.
Check that out.
Uncle Meat.
It's a Mother's album called Uncle Meat. It's a double album. Look at that.
Yeah. So what is it about that album that appeals to you?
It has 3 of my favorite Zappa songs. I mean, as I said earlier, you can kind of categorize his music into jazz, comedy, abstract. My 3 favorite songs on here are probably in that comedy column. You've got a song called Dog Breath in the Year of the Plague. I mean, the title there is enough for me. But you got like silly lyrics like Primer Mi Carucha, Chevy 39, going to El Monte, Legion Stadium, pick up on my Wisa, she is so divine, help me stealing hubcaps, wasted all the time. And it's done with Alvin and the Chipmunks voices. Come on, it can't get better than that. Can it? So I love that. I love Dog Breath and the Year of the Plague. It's also got The Air. It's got Mr. Green Jeans. These are just for me fantastic songs. It's got a lot of abstract stuff too, maybe jazz oriented. It's got a whole side of songs called King Kong Variations. Very abstract stuff. It's not accessible. This came out in 1968, you know, and I bet it blew a lot of people's minds. I mean, everything Zappa had done up until that point was mind blowing, but this just continued that. I listened to the King Kong Variations the other day, and I concluded that if you drink 5 or 6 beers, you can get it. But if you're just trying to listen to something casually like that, it's just probably not going to work for you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Uncle Meat to me was kind of at the end of that period where Frank Zappa was doing a lot of social commentary. You know, he's fixed in. There's a lot of protests going on in the 60s and such, and he was very into that. He was still, in my opinion, still developing as a guitar player. I mean, the guitar is in the album, but it's not. He's not dominating at all. But you had Ian Underwood on that album. You had Roy Estrada. You had Jimmy Carl Black, the Indian of the group. This is sort of off color, but my best friend, the one that forced me to listen to Zappa originally, his girlfriend broke up with my friend and went to Hawaii where she met Jimmy Carl Black, and,
Wow.
and they hooked up. And so she let Mike know about that, and you know, he was pretty upset.
Not good.
Not good. If you
Let me
watch,
ask you a question about
Yep.
this album that I've noticed. One of the things I've noticed about his older albums is that the recordings are not all that good compared to what came later. Is that something that you notice about this album?
I wouldn't say so. I mean,
Okay.
there was probably albums that came out in 1968 that were better, but I mean, this wasn't something that I found lacking.
Okay.
you know.
Well, I have it on CD,
Mhm.
and I got it recently because I know it's required listening, but I only have so much time, and I'm going to get to it because really, when we look back in our library, there's not a lot in there that really can stand up in repeated listenings. And
Right.
but Zappa's music, there's always something there new to discover, especially in the more complex things like Uncle Meat. So that's really a good aspect of that.
Yep. No, I'm sure once you listen to it, you'll enjoy it. I mean, there's a lot there. The dog breath in the year of the plague. There's the original song, and there's a variation on that, as there is on I think Just Another Band from L.A. I mean, they're all good, but you
All right,
have to
well,
like the Alvin and the Chipmunks voices.
let me go to my number four. So
Okay.
what I have is this CD. It's a twofer. So
Aha.
one is apostrophe, and the other one is
There we go.
overnight sensation, which makes perfect sense because, like I said, they were recorded almost at the same time. So, overnight sensation, I mean, there's not a bad song on there. And I got to tell you, my favorite that I come back to all the time is I figure the odds be 50-50. I just might have something to say. Hey, hey. And then you got George Duke with his Calliope solo, like you're at the circus, but he is killing it. And
Yeah.
then Jean-Luc Ponty comes in with his violin solo, and then Zappa seals the deal with his guitar solo. And you have Ricky Lancelotti on the vocals. I love that song. That's my favorite. It's not one of the more popular songs off the album, but I just think it's terrific. But all of them are good. Dynamo Hum, I mean, you don't need to listen to that very often. You get it. But I think I'm the slime. How how up to date is that? I mean, it's really that's his breakout album. And like I said, that and Apostrophe were his two gold albums. And it's not a surprise because they're both really solid.
Yeah, I think at that point in his career, everybody knew about Frank Zappa finally, because there was enough accessibility there that there was something for everybody, at least that they could listen to a whole song.
But it's I ended up buying this on 8-track from my uncle, who was about 20 years older than me, and he really liked it a lot. But it's yeah, it's just I mean, is that a real poncho or is that a Sears poncho?
Camarillo Brillo.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope that Zappa is remembered for all of the diversity that he had as a artist because the guy is he's unprecedented. There's nobody that can touch him in terms of his multi talents. There really is not. He's got it all. I mean, you look at what he did with the Czech government, how they brought him over there to help him. I think he became the ministry of something where he was basically determining who was going to come in and do cultural things for the government. And then, of course, the stuff he did with Congress. The guy was just amazing.
That reminds me, I saw a video last year or year before. I think the Offspring, uh, Dweezil and Moon and Amit. And there's one more I can't doesn't come to mind right
Earl,
now, but they went to some small city in Italy, I guess where Frank Zappa's parents had come from, something like that. Anyway, they were received as heroes, because the city was just glad that they had spawned Frank Zappa, so I mean that was kind of nice.
Yeah. So you down to your number three now?
I am down to my third favorite Frank Zappa album, and again, these are my favorites. I'm not saying these are the best albums, best musically. They just my favorites and my favorites from last week. Next week I'll have 5 different ones probably, and I already talked about this one a little bit. This is Flo and Eddie album, just another band from Los Angeles. It's a live album at this is from Poly Pavilion in Los Angeles. And as I mentioned earlier, it was part of a tour where they recorded, I don't know how many songs. There's a ton of songs on here and on the other ones. This one has my favorite Frank Zappa song, and a lot of people I know that love Frank Zappa hate this song, is Billy the Mountain. Okay, love it or hate it, it's in my opinion, it's my favorite. It's a whole half of the album, and you have it's starring a mountain who lives in Southern California, and it's starring Ethel, who is a tree growing off of his shoulder, Studebaker Hawk, and who has trained flies, and it's chaotic. And again, it's a Flo and Eddie album, so to me it's done pretty darn well. Saw Dweezil do this in its entirety about 6 or 7 years ago, and that band absolutely nailed every part. It was quite good. They were very proud that they got through this. So it's got a great version of Dog Breath, Call Any Vegetable. Again, back to Flo and Eddie. Some people wonder why Frank Zappa got together with Flo and Eddie. I mean, Zappa, I read at one point, he had said, I structure my albums and my music based on whatever talent I can pull in at the time. And at that time it was Flo and Eddie, so they had this comedy oriented thrust to their music. I mean, other times he had different musicians that could do different things, so they might have gone into a jazz direction, but this was the comedy direction with Flo and Eddie. It's my number 3. Love it.
Yeah, that album, I don't have it in my collection, and I probably don't need to ever hear it again because I know it so well. There's a lot of inside jokes there, like Eddie, Are You Kidding? Where you go to Zachary All and nothing fits. Unless you're from LA, you don't know what they're talking about. So there's a lot of inside jokes there that are fairly dated. And I think that musically, a lot of times when Flo and Eddie are doing their thing, there's a lot of vamping going on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a deterrent for me, really, to listening to it. But I can understand that why it's appealing, because it was really original and engaging. It's funny, there's a guy on YouTube that I think is called Bill's Barrel of Music or something, and he just did a video on the albums that Frank Zappa listeners hate the most. And I hate to tell you, I think I told you this before, but Thingfish dominated the poll, and Francesco Zappa, which is not really Frank Zappa, that was second. But this album, interestingly, there was a lot of people that they put it as one of their least favorite albums. These are Zappa diehards. So
Mm-hmm.
want to watch the video, it's pretty good. The guy's got a lot of Zappa stuff, and he's around our age.
Yeah.
It's Bill's something. I'll send you the link for it and check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to me if it was constructive. I mean, I don't like to watch a video where someone's saying, I hate this, I hate that, I just don't like it, I don't like it. I want to know why. Is it technically incompetent? I mean, is there a valid reason to not like it?
Yeah.
I want to know those details, but not just your personal preference. Come back next week and review something that you do like and tell me how beautiful it is. So
They
anyway,
didn't give
it's
him
just
any
me.
reason. It was just a real quick video. So my number three, I bought this when it first came out, and I think it's fantastic to this day. It's live at the Roxy and elsewhere. I just think this is really, really good. There's a video on YouTube where you can see them doing this, and it's got so many great cuts. Of course, cheapness. I love monster movies. I mean, I really enjoy Frank doing a narrative introduction, and Village of the Sun, great. And he does More Trouble Every Day off of the first album, which is really
So,
good.
Son of Orange County.
Yeah, Penguin in Bondage.
Yeah.
The only thing that kind of I don't really like is the dedication to the Bebop Tango. It's too long,
It
but I
was
think
it was a visual thing.
exactly,
You had to be there to see it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that this came right on the heels of Overnight Sensation, and he had a really good band, and it's just I think it's a great live album. And now, when Zappa had live albums, you really have to think twice about that because he would go in and he would monkey around a lot with the sound and do overdubs and things of that sort. I don't really care about that. To me, I just want something that sounds good. I don't care how they came at it. That's his prerogative. He did that a lot where he would go in and he would do overdubs many years after the fact. And
Right.
that rubs people the wrong way a lot of times. As a matter of fact, it rubbed me the wrong way on my next selection, but I'm going to wait until I get there. But I think this is great. I mean, imagine, did you ever go to the Roxy for any concerts?
I think we saw Junior Walker and the All Stars back in the day.
You and I?
No, not me and you.
Because I saw him
Somebody
at the
else.
Palace, but the Roxy is small.
Yeah.
And seeing Zappa in a place like that would be absolutely amazing. I mean, it's like he's playing in your living room almost.
Hmm.
And I never got to see him in an intimate place like that. So that must have been a really good show.
Well, that's a testament to his, popularity, staying power. I mean, the fact that we saw him at larger venues. I mean, you play larger venues because you can make more money, because you're popular. I mean,
Yeah,
if your audience is shrunk, then you play at the corner bar,
that's
so.
true. But sometimes people would play at a small show. I don't know if I ever told you, but I saw Stephen Stills at the Whiskey. Did I ever tell you that?
You did not.
Yeah, so it was a benefit concert. Little Feat opened for him, and then
Oh,
he was a headliner. And that was Little Feat they stole the show. I mean, they were so good, so tight. Stephen Stills was good, but Little Feat, and Lil George was with Zappa for a couple albums. I think
yeah.
he threw him out because of his drug usage.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I recall that Frank, to my knowledge, he never was a drinker or a drug
never.
user.
Coffee and cigarettes.
Cigarettes for sure. I don't think I've ever seen him. I mean, check this out again. I've never seen
Yeah,
him in concert without a cigarette either in his mouth or stuck
yeah,
to his guitar neck.
yeah.
It was always there. And
Where
I
did you
think,
get that T-shirt?
I don't know. It's been there for a while.
Because I want one. Anyway,
Well,
what's
let
your
me know
number
when your
two?
birthday is. I forgot. So
What is your number
maybe
two album?
number two favorite of the week. Look at that.
Hmm,
Frank Zappa. This is not Mothers. This is the Frank Zappa album. It's called Zoot Allures.
yeah,
Yep. Terry Bozzio era.
and there's an
Um,
interesting thing about that. Eddie Jobson's on the cover, but he doesn't play on the album.
no, is that true?
Yeah, he was with Zappa after that, but he's not
Okay.
on the album.
Yeah. Um, this came out in '76. Had Ruth Underwood. It's my number 2 album, and it could have easily been number 1 because it is one that I listen to all the time. It has for me, it has everything. It has the funny stuff. It has Finder Finer,
I
Sneak Up
love that
Behind Her,
song.
Rap Like a Dummy Till You
Yeah,
Finally Grind Her.
I
I mean,
love
come
that
on,
song.
come on.
That's a really good song.
Yeah, I mean that stuff is great. Uh, there's two good guitar extravaganzas, Friendly Little Finger and Black Napkins. Black Napkins is his, probably in my opinion, one of his most accessible guitar songs, and it is very popular. He played it in every concert after a point, and it was an absolute crowd pleaser. Friendly Little Finger might be even better. um just absolutely love those songs. I can't get enough. And um it's always sitting right here. If I have a couple drinks, it's either gonna be Zoot Allures or a Joni Mitchell or a Stephen Stills, or one of those from that era. There's another song called Wonderful Wino.
Yeah,
It's like
good one.
LA in the summer of '69. I went downtown and bought me some wine.
Yeah.
It just goes on from there. And it's the backdrop to that song is just a power chord guitar extravaganza. It's just a beautiful song.
Well, the intro to that is Bringing in the Sheaves. You
Yeah,
know that
right,
song
right.
with the saxophone playing the melody, and then they go right into those power chords on Wonderful Wino.
Yeah. No, it's
That's brilliant.
masterful. Yeah, this album also too had one of the few radio-worthy songs that Zappa put out. It was that Disco Boy.
Yeah.
Um, not my favorite, but I still like it. When the album's playing, I never take that off. It's an entertaining song. The guy's combing his hair, and it's the whole Disco Boy thing. It's very representative of 1976 when that was happening. So
Yeah.
anyway,
It's funny that you brought up the Black Pages or Black Napkins.
yeah.
So that guitar riff is also equivalent to the Muffin Man guitar riff,
Mhm.
and also on Eat That Question. So, I've been watching that video of those guys, and they talk about it's an earworm where the guitar on Eat That Question, you get it in your brain, and it just won't go away.
Yeah,
And the Muffin Man is like that, and also Black Napkins, same
yeah.
sort of thing.
Muffin Man from Bongo Fury almost made it into my top 5. I mean, it's sitting right here. I
Yeah.
I I was really conflicted, and it'll probably be there next week. But Muffin Man is something he did in concert frequently, and it was just a heavy metal power chord, beautiful song, and entertaining as hell with really really funny lyrics. So
That concert that you slept through, that had Captain Beefheart opening for
yeah,
Zappa, and they didn't play anything together at all.
no.
Zappa was very reluctant to let him perform live with him
Mhm.
because I think that he just didn't want to toe the line and do what Zappa wanted. So he was only on a couple songs, Willie the Pimp, and of course on Bongo Fury. But I was surprised because they were tight growing up together in high school. You would have thought Zappa would have brought him out. It was New Year's Eve and let him play with him, but he didn't. It was just, and I went out to the lobby. I couldn't take it because I was like in the 10th row at the Forum, and that voice amplified like it was. He was just like staggering across the stage
It sound
incoherently.
is his voice is like when you drop a spoon into the garbage disposer.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good way to describe it.
Yeah,
So my number two,
yeah.
I have a few different renditions. So I got the original here, right here.
Hey,
And then I I got this from my brother. I bought a reissue of it, which is this. And originally Zappa wanted this to be the outer cover, but
uh,
because of contractual reasons, they forced him to go with that. But what he did on this, he overdubbed, he re-recorded the bass and the drums, and it stands out like a sore thumb because it doesn't blend with the
no,
sound quality that they had in the original recordings, and it really irritated me to no end. So I ended up buying, I found a CD. This CD is the original recording of the vinyl, but it's on CD. And look, it's on the back. It's a twofer, right? With lumpy gravy. So this was my number two. After Live at the Fillmore East, my brother had this. And to me, this is a wonderful combination of all things excellent from Frank Zappa. So the humor, the social commentary, the songs. It's just, and I have this album pretty well memorized. I played it so many times, and
yeah,
even though the recording is kind of primitive, it's just so cool for me. The chrome plated megaphone of destiny, the last cut, that's almost too scary to listen to when you're alone, especially if you got it cranked up. But just has so many fantastic things on it. It had to be up there, and that's why it's my number two.
what what year did that one come out?
68.
68.
Yep.
Okay. I remember in I guess it was early 70s. A lot of people, a lot of Zappa fans had that as their favorite album. I mean, that I that was being played a lot during my I Hate Zappa phase. Of
Ah.
course, I switched gears at some point and found a way to love it. But I agree with you. It should definitely be up there.
So, the idiot bastard son, that's great. And Harry, you're a beast. Okay, so giving some props on the re-release with the re-recorded bass and drums. The original recording was edited, it was censored, and we've talked about this before. So they're able to go in and they were able to have things there that were not on the original, especially on Harry, You're a Beast, when he talks about what he's doing to her while they're having sex. Um, and Mom and Dad, I mean, that's very poignant. And I love the special effects, the sound effects. Are you hung up? And Flower Punk, which is Hey Joe,
I love
right?
Flower Punk. Leave
But
my
it's
nose,
just
leave my nose alone, please.
yeah. I mean, this was his second album.
What is he saying? Like I will I will love you and talk about love and peace while the cops beat the shit out of me.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. This was a second, and then Absolutely Free was a third. Is that right, or do I have them reversed?
That as far as I know. Yeah.
Absolutely free.
Freak out,
I
absolutely free, and this one were the first three, right?
Yeah, and absolutely free. The if she were my daughter passage, I just can't hang with that. That to me is just too. It's too much over the top for me, and I
Yeah.
just don't listen to that album because of that. It's
Yeah. I
sad.
mean, when we were 18, I guess maybe it was easier to stomach, but now I agree with you. It's a little out there. I wouldn't want to hear it now. Brown
But
Shoes
now
Don't
now
Make It is a good song in general.
he's talking about it in the third person.
Hmm.
So it's this principle, I guess, at the school that's doing this. It's not Zappa doing
Okay.
it.
Well,
All
that
right.
makes it better.
So what's number one on your list?
Well, you already stole my thunder, man, because
Oh,
Grand Wazoo is number one
ah,
for Stan.
okay.
Grand
Sorry.
Wazoo. I didn't listen to this album probably until like 4 years ago, and then somehow I found it, and it was, this pressing's from a long time ago. I had never listened to it, and it was in perfect condition, so I listened to it, and it was revelationary, and I've been listening to it a lot ever since. I kind of had this weird theory that these Flo and Eddie albums. I thought, why did Zappa do that? And I thought maybe he was trying to make some money by touring with these funny guys from the Turtles, so he could finance something like Grand Wazoo, because this has there's like credited 11 different people on here, playing different horns and woodwinds. I mean, it's an orchestra basically, and the music is very, very fulfilling. It's on the jazz side for me. And if you look back, when did it come out? 1972. There was a lot of good music coming out back then in the jazz genre, but I don't know if there's anything I like better than Grand Wazoo. I mean, there was some Miles Davis coming out. It was which is a little more esoteric for me. But Grand Wazoo really hit the spot. I mean, the title track, it just builds and builds and builds all this tension until he just smacks you with this hook, this guitar hook. It just floors me every time. I could listen to that song all day. And you talked about earworms, and I get that, the guitar hook in my head, but it's not such a bad thing. It's a beautiful song. There's a horn player, Sal Marquez. He's kind of the guy on this.
Yeah.
I think he arranged the brass, and it's just beautifully done.
He played in the Tonight Show
George Duke,
Orchestra with Johnny
go ahead.
Carson. Yeah, he played in the Tonight Show Orchestra with Johnny Carson. Sal
Okay.
Marquez. Yeah.
Yeah. No, on these Zappa albums from this era, I mean, he's the king. I mean, him and George Duke on Grand Wazoo were just the heroes, driving everything. I think I mentioned to you, sent you a text at 2:30 a.m. on January 1st this year. The first song I listened to this year was Cletus Auritus Auritus from Grand Wazoo. So that's how much I like that album. And glad I finally found it. It took me a few years to get to it, but it's cool.
Well, I'm still discovering it, but I'm surprised that this album has not made an appearance in our discussion, because this is considered the number one Frank Zappa album by the masses. And it's this one right here, One Size Fits All.
Yeah.
And this to me is a perfect album. I mean, every single song, well, Inca Roads is considered Zappa's best song. And I think the guitar solo is live. He took it from a live show, and then he edited it into the song. But Pajama People, I mean, I was singing that to my chiropractor yesterday because I told him what we're going to do. And you talk about a guitar solo on that song is fantastic. And Florentine Pogin, and then I know your favorite, Evelyn, a Modified Dog.
Favorite Zappa song. Yeah.
Andy Devine, he's so fine. And every song, Can't Afford No Shoes. And then you have Johnny Guitar Watson on San Bernardino. I mean,
yeah.
To me, if you want to introduce somebody to Frank Zappa that's got their head screwed on right, this is the place to start, because I think this is their finest moment. So that's why for me it's number one.
I had it in my hand, and then I thought, you know what? I listened to this so much.
Yeah,
I thought, let's give somebody else a chance. But I mean, it could on another day, it'll be
I
number
get
one.
it. I get it.
San Bernardino is one of my favorite Zappa songs. Got slobbering drunk at the Palomino.
Yeah,
He gave me 30 days in San Bernardino. There's only one shower, but it don't apply to Bobby. I
yeah,
mean, come on, man. That's good stuff.
yeah. Well, I tried not to be unduly influenced by what people think, because ultimately I wanted to do justice to them in terms of their overall excellence. And I think I'm happy with my selections overall. I think Bongo Fury is really, really good. Zoot Allures is really, really good. I think if we were going for a top 10, I would have definitely put those two in there. And but there's so much to discover. So I wanted to ask you about maybe doing some future programs. It may be interesting to pick an album that we could go into and talk about in depth that
Sure.
maybe you don't know it or maybe I don't know it,
Yep.
and we could spend some time on getting into it. I'll tell you one that came to mind that I thought would be really fun, especially since it's got kind of a Zappa connection, is Focus Live at the Rainbow. Have you ever
Focus,
listened to that?
focus. Yeah.
Have you heard the album?
I haven't heard. I'm not sure I've heard the album, but I had a group of friends that were into that group, so I know the music.
Yeah, that album, that's their best because Jan Ackerman on guitar, he is amazing, and there's a lot of really good arrangements, instrumentals that definitely have a Zappa influence. It's from '73,
Mhm.
and it's a very nice recording. I love it. I mean, I listen to it a lot, and it's not that well known, so that would be kind of fun to do. But I want you to participate on something that you enjoy, that you think would be good to
Sure.
do. Um, so maybe what we can do is, you could take a listen to that and see if it appeals to you. I want to tell you that Zappa, they toured with the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Did you know that?
Missed that one.
And when they were playing together and they heard Mahavishnu, they were intimidated because they said, we cannot even approach the level of musicianship of this band. So I thought that was kind of cool because I love Zappa's guitar playing, but I like John McLaughlin even better because he's like Zappa in terms of his capability, but I think his ideas are even more uh, exotic and extreme. So I thought that was kind of cool. To I read a biography of Mahavishnu, and they were talking about that in that book. So that was kind of cool. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's a good idea. Let's toss some ideas around. I mean, we one different twist would be to pick an artist and pick your favorite songs from that artist. We
songs
could
or
agree on
albums?
those songs in advance, maybe,
Would it be
and
songs or albums?
either way,
Yeah,
just get a little more focused because we covered what 16 albums today, right?
yeah.
If I
There's a lot
yeah,
more.
there's a lot more. Yeah. So this was fun. I appreciate you having me on, and let's do it again.
We will. So I'm gonna record this. I am recording it, and I'm gonna put it up on YouTube, and I'm gonna share it with that guy I told you about, that has reviewed every Zappa album
Yep.
and every Zappa concert tour, and I'm gonna share this with him. He's kind of strange. Like he's discounted one size fits all because he can't afford no shoes. That's a deal breaker for him, and he hates Thingfish. I mean, he won't even mention the name. So he's really a Zappa snob, but again, he's very knowledgeable. So that would be somebody that would be cool maybe to bring on and do three of us, and we could do maybe an album and just talk about the album. And I think if we were to do some preparation in advance, that could be that could be really fun. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, look, I'm gonna sign off for now. I got 2 more Zoom meetings today, if you can believe that. There's a total of 5 for the day. So, but this was really enjoyable. So I look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Same here, Tony. Had a good
Right.
time. Have a
Okay,
good
see you later.
afternoon. Bye.